Today, we're diving into a question that echoes through cathedrals, newsrooms, and dinner tables around the world. What kind of Pope will Leo XIV be? This isn't just about a new leader wearing white. It's about a man who journeyed from the storm-tossed streets of Chicago's South Side to the most sacred office in the Roman Catholic Church. His story is one of discipline and devotion, of missionary work and moral complexity, of a life lived on the edge between tradition and transformation. As the first American to take the throne of St. Peter, Pope Leo XIV arrives not just with a unique past, but with the weight of a fractured church on his shoulders. His decisions will shape not only doctrine and dogma, but the future of faith itself. Let's break it down. 1. From Chicago's storm to the Vatican's calm. Pope Leo XIV's story begins far from the marble halls of the Vatican. Born as Robert Prevost, he was raised in the heart of Chicago's South Side, a place Carl Sandburg once described as stormy, husky, and brawling. It's a neighborhood known not for its peace, but for its grit. There, amid working-class struggle and the roar of a city that never flinches, Leo XIV was formed, shaped not just by doctrine, but by the pulse of real people living real lives. He wasn't born into power or privilege. His early life was grounded in the everyday reality of teaching math and physics while studying theology at the Catholic Theological Union. These were not ivory tower days, they were filled with service, street smarts, and sacrifice. It was a life that taught him to see beyond theory and into the lives of those often overlooked. These experiences planted the seeds of compassion, justice, and intellectual depth that would later define his ministry. But it wasn't long before the winds of calling blew him far from home. He left the familiarity of Chicago for the mission fields of Peru, dedicating much of his adult life to serving communities in Latin America. It was there, and later in Italy, that his theological and pastoral identity truly matured. He worked in silence, away from global headlines, ministering to the forgotten and navigating the real tensions between church teaching and human struggle. Now, as he stands at the helm of a global church, Pope Leo XIV brings with him the storm-forged resolve of Chicago and the quiet wisdom of years spent in service. He steps into the calm of Vatican walls not as an outsider, but as a man who understands chaos and how to shepherd through it. This contrast between his rugged roots and spiritual elevation may define his approach, steady, unshaken, and deeply rooted in lived experience. Quick pause before we continue. Welcome to Sacred Pulse Times, where faith meets truth and timeless stories come alive. If you're passionate about Christian history, inspiring lives, and spiritual insight, you're in the right place. Tap that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a heartbeat from the global Christian community. Let's keep growing together in faith and knowledge. 2. A scientist turned shepherd. Long before Robert Prevost wore the white cassock of the papacy or was addressed as Pope Leo XIV, he stood before classrooms as a teacher of math and physics on the southwest side of Chicago. He wasn't yet a theologian, or a bishop, or a man with global influence. He was an educator, sharpening young minds with the precise language of numbers, formulas, and natural laws. It's a part of his story that's easy to overlook, yet it may offer a vital clue to how he will lead the Catholic Church in an age of complexity and contradiction. Science demands order, logic, and clarity. It asks questions, tests assumptions, and welcomes discovery. It does not flee from mystery but seeks to understand it, methodically, patiently, and honestly. These are not just traits of a good physicist or mathematician. They are the traits of a leader who listens before acting, who understands the value of evidence, and who knows the weight of decisions made without full understanding. This foundation in scientific reasoning may serve Pope Leo XIV well in navigating the modern Church's thorniest issues where emotion and ideology often cloud clarity. Whether it's the ethical use of technology, the debate over climate change, the tension between traditional morality and modern identity, or even church governance itself, Leo's logical training could ground his papacy in thoughtful deliberation rather than reactive dogmatism. But his transition from science to spiritual leadership is also telling. It reflects a man who did not see faith and reason as opposing forces, but as complementary pathways to truth. That integration may be one of his greatest strengths. In a time when many see religion and science at odds, Leo XIV may bring a rare capacity to harmonize them. he may remind the world, through action and policy, that Catholic tradition has always had a place for reason, and that faith, far from being blind, can thrive when informed by disciplined thought. As a shepherd, Leo XIV may lead not with fiery rhetoric or sweeping declarations, but with precision, clarity, and intentionality. His past as a scientist-turned-pastor could mean a papacy that is careful with language, rigorous in its discernment, and courageous in the face of uncertainty. He knows the world doesn't run on miracles alone, it also runs on understanding. And perhaps that balance of mystery and method will be the hallmark of his reign. 3. Missionary heart, global vision. Before ascending to the papacy as Leo XIV, Robert Prevost walked roads far from the spotlight of Rome. He spent many of his formative years as a missionary priest in Peru, one of Latin America's most spiritually rich yet economically struggling nations. There, he didn't just preach, he listened. He didn't just lead, he lived among the people, often in communities plagued by poverty, injustice, and political instability. It's here that the seeds of his missionary heart were planted, nurtured by the simple and raw spirituality of the poor, the suffering, and the faithful. As a missionary, Leo XIV was immersed in cultures and crises that tested both faith and resilience. In Peru, he witnessed the real consequences of corruption, civil unrest, and marginalization, not from a distance, but up close. He engaged with communities battling economic disparity, indigenous exclusion, and spiritual disillusionment. These experiences weren't just formative. They were transformative. They gave him a grassroots understanding of how the Church must function as both a sanctuary and a catalyst, a place of comfort and a force for justice. But his journey didn't end in the mission fields. His talents and dedication eventually took him to Italy, where he assumed more administrative and leadership roles within the Augustinian order and the Roman Curia. There, he gained a front-row seat to the inner workings of church governance, learning how theology, diplomacy, and global politics intersect within the Vatican's vast machinery. This dual exposure, to the peripheries and to the center, gives Pope Leo XIV a rare and powerful perspective. He understands both the pain of the people and the complexity of global leadership. He knows what it means to minister to the forgotten, but also how to navigate the labyrinth of church bureaucracy and canon law. Few popes have brought to the papacy such an even balance of field experience and institutional insight. This unique blend could shape him into a pontiff who refuses to be boxed in by ideology, one who can challenge rigid traditionalism without discarding doctrine, and who can push for reform without losing the Church's spiritual essence. His missionary heart means he listens first and leads with compassion. His global vision means he understands the interconnectedness of the Church's challenges, whether in Africa, Asia, Latin America, or the West. In Pope Leo XIV, we find a bridge between the margins and the center, between the struggling villages of Peru and the polished chambers of the Vatican. And that bridge may be exactly what the Church needs now, a path forward built on humility, courage, and a clear-eyed view of a changing world. 4. His papal name hints at his intentions. When a newly elected pope steps onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and announces his chosen papal name, it's more than a ceremonial tradition, it's a signal to the world. With the name Leo XIV, Robert Prevost didn't just pick from history, he invoked a legacy, a statement, and perhaps even a roadmap for his papacy. To understand the weight of this name, we must look back at the two historical popes likely influencing his choice. The first, Pope Leo I, known as Leo the Great, reigned from 440 to 461 and is remembered as one of the Church's strongest theological minds and most diplomatic leaders. He famously met with Attila the Hun, persuading him not to sack Rome. But more importantly, Leo the Great played a crucial role in defining church doctrine during turbulent times, holding firm against heresies and uniting a fractured Christian world. His papacy was marked by courage, theological clarity, and a deep devotion to preserving the unity of the Church. The second likely inspiration is Leo XII, who led the Church from 1823 to 1829. His reign was deeply conservative, known for a strong emphasis on moral purity and the reassertion of traditional Catholic doctrine in the wake of post-Enlightenment secularism. Leo XII was admired by some for his strict adherence to principle, but also criticized for policies that alienated non-Catholics and reinforced exclusionary practices, such as barring Jews from owning property in the Papal States. So why would Pope Leo XIV choose a name that calls forth such contrasting legacies, one a healer of divisions, the other a guardian of strict moral order? The answer might be found in the moment we're living in. Today's church is pulled in multiple directions. On one side, there are calls for reform and inclusivity. To make the church more welcoming to LGBTQ+ Catholics, to open broader discussions on celibacy and women's roles, and to align the faith more closely with social justice. On the other side, there's a resurgent conservatism, urging a return to rigid orthodoxy, fearing that too much openness could erode sacred traditions. By choosing the name Leo XIV, this new pope may be signaling his intent to walk a narrow bridge, to hold the church together through wisdom, not war, through discipline, but not division. He might strive to unify like Leo the Great, calming tensions among U.S. Catholics deeply polarized by politics and cultural issues, while also embracing the moral seriousness of Leo XII, challenging the church not to lose its identity in the face of modern relativism. Will he be a reformer? A traditionalist? Or something more rare, a synthesizer, capable of weaving together the enduring truths of Catholic tradition with the evolving conscience of the modern world? The name Leo means lion. And lions do not follow, they lead, protect, and roar when necessary. Whether he becomes a roaring defender of doctrine or a brave peacemaker amid division, Pope Leo XIV has sent a message. His name is not just a tribute to history, it's a hint at his vision for the future. The Church, and the world, would be wise to pay attention. 5. A church divided, will he rebuild or reinforce? American Catholicism is not merely diverse, it is deeply fractured. At times, it feels less like a spiritual community and more like a battleground. There are those who rally behind reform, calling for a church that is more inclusive, compassionate, and aligned with the social justice values of Pope Francis. Others, equally passionate, demand a return to tradition, insisting that the Church has strayed too far from its theological roots and moral clarity. Into this storm steps Pope Leo XIV, an American by birth and now a universal shepherd by divine appointment. The question looming over his papacy is this: will he rebuild bridges or reinforce walls? The divide is sharp and emotional. On one side, progressive Catholics champion causes like LGBTQ+ inclusion, expanded roles for women in ministry, and compassion-driven immigration policy. They seek a church that mirrors the openness and mercy of Christ, believing that love must come before law. For them, Leo XIV's American upbringing and missionary background offer hope that he understands the struggles of marginalized communities. They envision a pope who will heal wounds, not guard gates. On the other side are conservative Catholics who believe the Church has compromised too much. They lament what they see as creeping relativism and doctrinal confusion. Many supported the tough stances taken by previous popes, on abortion, on gender identity, and on maintaining clerical celibacy. For them, Leo's choice of a papal name associated with moral rigor raises the possibility that he may shore up the walls of orthodoxy and halt what they see as a slide toward secularism. This divide isn't just ideological, it's institutional. The U.S. Church today features a vibrant network of liberal Catholic grassroots organizations, but also a powerful conservative press, influential bishops, and even government officials who wear their faith with a distinct political lens. Nearly two-thirds of the U.S. Supreme Court is Catholic. So are key members of past presidential administrations, many of whom champion conservative Catholic values. It's a church deeply entangled in the broader culture wars of America. So what does Pope Leo XIV do with this chaos? Does he try to rebuild unity among these warring factions, much like Leo the Great did in his time, focusing on dialogue, reconciliation, and shared core beliefs? Or does he reinforce tradition, defending the purity of doctrine and moral clarity even at the cost of alienating more progressive Catholics? It's a path filled with peril and promise. Choosing to be a bridge will require tremendous wisdom and courage, balancing empathy with orthodoxy. Choosing to be a boundary might gain him admiration from doctrinal purists but deepen the rift with younger, socially conscious Catholics. At the heart of the Catholic faith is the idea of unity under one church, one faith, one baptism. And now, Leo XIV must decide what that unity looks like in practice. Will he become the architect of a church renewed or the sentinel of a church preserved? The world is watching. And so is the church, divided, expectant, and hanging on his every word. 6. The papacy in the age of politics. Pope Leo XIV's papacy arrives at a unique and turbulent moment in history, an era where politics and religion seem more intertwined than ever before, especially in the United States. Over the past few decades, conservative Catholicism has gained significant traction within U.S. politics. From the Supreme Court to the White House, Catholic voices, particularly those with a conservative bent, are now shaping the nation's political landscape. This isn't merely a shift in political allegiance, it's a full-blown merger of faith and ideology that deeply influences everything from judicial appointments to national policy. The U.S. Catholic right has found powerful allies in key political figures, many of whom wield considerable influence in American politics. Former President Donald Trump's administration, for instance, included a significant number of Catholic officials who adhered to conservative views on issues like abortion, marriage, and the role of religion in government. With the rightward turn of the U.S. government and a Catholic-majority Supreme Court, many have wondered what kind of relationship Pope Leo XIV will have with these political powers. But here's where things get interesting. Despite the close alignment of conservative Catholics with the political right in the U.S., Pope Leo XIV's previous comments and actions suggest he won't simply toe the line of American political interests. His time as a missionary and his leadership within the Church have given him a global perspective, one that may not always align with the political desires of American conservatives. In fact, his earlier criticisms of the Trump administration's hardline stance on immigration suggest that Leo XIV will not shy away from speaking truth to power, even if that means challenging political giants. In the final years of his papacy, Pope Francis became a vocal critic of President Trump's immigration policies, calling them violations of human dignity. He denounced actions like the separation of families at the U.S.-Mexico border and the deportation of vulnerable migrants. Though Pope Leo XIV has not been as overt in his criticism, his association with progressive causes, particularly on issues of social justice, signals that he might continue this legacy of speaking out against injustices. He might, for example, take a stand on issues like immigration, poverty, and the treatment of refugees, issues that have become deeply politicized in the U.S. The tension between the Vatican's role as a moral leader and the political power of Catholic figures in the U.S. will likely be one of the most defining aspects of Leo XIV's papacy. Will he reinforce the relationship between the Church and political power, or will he follow in the footsteps of his predecessors in calling for moral accountability, even when that means opposing the political establishment? It's clear that Leo's papacy will not shy away from confronting the political realities of today's world. In a time where the lines between church and state are often blurred, Pope Leo XIV faces a monumental task: to maintain the integrity of the Church's teachings while navigating the complex web of political allegiances that have emerged in the U.S. His voice on issues like immigration, poverty, and global conflicts could carry significant weight, making him a powerful figure in the political discourse, not just within the walls of the Vatican, but in the corridors of power around the world. The age of political papacy has arrived. Will Leo XIV become a leader who uses his position to advocate for the marginalized and challenge political orthodoxy, or will he seek to align more closely with the political powers that shape the world? The answer will shape his papacy for years to come. 7. Signs point to social justice. Social justice isn't just a buzzword for Pope Leo XIV, it appears to be a cornerstone of his conscience. Long before ascending to the chair of St. Peter, Leo, then Bishop Robert Prevost, was known for his unwavering commitment to the dignity of every human being. That moral compass was on full display during a moment that caught the attention of Catholic circles and political commentators alike: the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia by the Trump administration. The event prompted sharp criticism in a post widely attributed to Leo. He didn't mince words. His message wasn't just political, it was pastoral, defending not just one man, but the countless voiceless lives caught in the machinery of immigration policy. That moment, and others like it, offer a telling glimpse into the papacy he might be shaping. Like his predecessor, Pope Francis, Leo appears deeply aligned with the Church's long-standing preferential option for the poor. A principle grounded in Scripture and Catholic social teaching. But Leo brings something distinct to that mission, the voice of someone who has walked in solidarity with the oppressed. His years in Peru weren't photo ops, they were ministry. He lived among communities lacking basic infrastructure and rights, learning firsthand the kinds of injustices that exist far beyond policy papers and diplomatic summits. So what kind of pope does that make him? Potentially, one who will speak out, firmly and frequently, on the structural sins of our global age: inequality, racism, environmental degradation, and the plight of refugees. It suggests a pontiff who won't hesitate to challenge world leaders when they violate human dignity, no matter their political leanings. But this path isn't without consequence. Taking a vocal stand on justice could invite resistance, not only from secular powers but also from within the Church, where some still bristle at what they see as a politicized preaching. Yet if early signs hold true, Leo XIV may see no contradiction between doctrine and justice. For him, the gospel demands more than belief, it demands action. 8. Treading a tightrope on cultural issues. Pope Leo XIV finds himself walking a precarious tightrope as he faces a series of deeply divisive cultural issues that have long strained the relationship between the Church and the broader society. With topics like gay marriage, transgender rights, abortion, and celibacy now dominating the global conversation, Leo must navigate these turbulent waters carefully, trying to balance the Church's long-standing doctrines with the call for greater compassion and inclusivity. First, let's talk about gay marriage. This issue has been one of the most contentious in recent years, with the Catholic Church, under Pope Francis, affirming traditional teachings that marriage is between one man and one woman. For many progressive Catholics, the Church's stance feels outdated, and they advocate for greater acceptance of LGBTQ+ relationships. Pope Leo XIV, with his American upbringing, may have a unique understanding of the growing push for LGBTQ+ rights, particularly in places like the US, where same-sex marriage is widely accepted and celebrated. But if he moves too far toward supporting same-sex marriage, he risks alienating traditionalists who view the sanctity of marriage as an unchangeable pillar of Catholic teaching. On the other hand, if Leo sticks rigidly to the Church's traditional stance, he might lose the support of younger, progressive Catholics who are looking for a pope who is more in tune with the world's evolving cultural norms. These divisions are not just theoretical, they are already playing out in the Church, as younger Catholics, particularly in the West, feel increasingly disconnected from a Church that appears resistant to change. Next up is the issue of transgender rights. In an era where transgender visibility and rights are being hotly debated, Pope Leo XIV will likely face growing pressure to address these concerns. While the Catholic Church has been traditionally silent or critical regarding transgender issues, society's increased focus on transgender rights may prompt Leo to take a stand. Should he lean towards compassion, supporting the dignity and rights of transgender individuals, he might anger conservative Catholics who adhere to more traditional views of gender and human sexuality. But if he remains silent or takes an oppositional stance, he risks being seen as out of touch with the struggles and realities faced by transgender people worldwide. Abortion remains another minefield. The Church's unwavering opposition to abortion has been a defining stance for centuries, but in many countries, particularly in the US and parts of Europe, abortion rights are increasingly viewed as a fundamental human right. Pope Leo XIV must navigate this complex issue with care. Should he soften the Church's stance or show more understanding toward those who seek abortions, he risks angering the more conservative factions within the Church, many of whom see abortion as an issue of moral and spiritual life or death. Yet, if Leo is too rigid in his position, he may alienate a growing number of Catholics who are advocating for reproductive rights as part of their broader commitment to social justice. Celibacy is also a thorny issue, especially in the wake of the clergy sexual abuse scandals that have shaken the Church to its core. While celibacy remains a pillar of Catholic priesthood, the question of whether it is an outdated and burdensome practice has been raised time and time again. Pope Leo XIV may face pressure to either reaffirm celibacy as a sacred vow or consider some form of relaxation, especially given the shortage of priests in many parts of the world. However, altering the centuries-old discipline of celibacy would be met with fierce resistance from traditionalists, who view celibacy as an integral part of the spiritual life of the priesthood. The Pope must also keep in mind the need to balance doctrine with compassion. Catholic doctrine is clear on many of these issues, but the global Church is vast, with Catholics in different parts of the world holding varying perspectives on moral and social issues. Pope Leo XIV will be under pressure to offer pastoral care and inclusivity without straying too far from Catholic tradition. He must find ways to open channels for dialogue and understanding, particularly with young people who are increasingly disillusioned with the Church's perceived rigidity. In the end, Leo XIV's ability to walk this fine line will define his papacy. He can't afford to cater exclusively to one side or the other, whether it's the progressives calling for more inclusivity or the traditionalists who are determined to uphold the Church's time-honored doctrines. Instead, he will need to be a leader who exemplifies the virtues of both wisdom and compassion, finding a path that honors the essence of Catholic teaching while also acknowledging the struggles of those on the margins of society. It's a difficult tightrope to walk, but how Leo handles these cultural issues will determine whether his papacy is remembered as one of healing and unification or division and stagnation. 9. American insight, global role. Pope Leo XIV holds a unique position within the Vatican. His deep understanding of American culture and society offers him an unprecedented advantage in addressing the complexities of U.S. Catholicism. Born and raised on the south side of Chicago, Leo is the first pope to truly understand America in a way no pontiff before him has. This connection to his homeland grants him a direct and intimate knowledge of the political, social, and cultural forces that shape not only the Church in America but also the broader American political landscape. However, this insight also places immense pressure on him to serve as both a spiritual leader and a cultural interpreter, navigating the delicate balance between Rome and Washington. The United States is home to one of the largest and most influential Catholic populations in the world. With a deeply polarized political climate, a growing cultural divide, and ongoing debates about the role of religion in public life, U.S. Catholics find themselves at a crossroads. Leo XIV, having grown up in Chicago, a city known for its vibrancy, diversity, and social struggles, understands the everyday concerns of American Catholics, from immigration and social justice to issues of race, poverty, and economic inequality. His experiences in America, particularly in Chicago, have given him a first-hand perspective on the challenges facing communities that are often marginalized and voiceless. Leo's unique insight into American life makes him more equipped than any of his predecessors to speak directly to the heart of U.S. Catholics. His background as a teacher in Chicago, coupled with his years of experience in Peru and Italy, means that he's not only familiar with the struggles of the American working class but also with the dynamics of global Catholicism. This understanding places him in a prime position to address the concerns of American Catholics while maintaining the global unity of the Church. However, being so closely tied to the American experience also puts him under intense scrutiny. The American Catholic Church is fractured, torn between progressive reformers pushing for inclusivity and traditionalists who feel threatened by societal changes. Leo XIV's decisions will likely be under constant observation, as both U.S. politicians and the American public will look to him to either champion or challenge the policies of the U.S. government. His papacy is destined to be shaped by his relationship with American political figures, especially those who wield significant power in Washington. One of the most significant areas where Leo's American insight will be tested is on issues like immigration. In recent years, the U.S. Catholic Church has taken a vocal stance against the hardline immigration policies promoted by former President Donald Trump. 10. A gentle leader for a tumultuous time? As Pope Leo XIV steps into his papacy, the Catholic Church finds itself at a crossroads. The world is watching closely, and the question on everyone's mind is, what kind of pope will he be? Will he be a conservative anchor, clinging to tradition amidst the tides of change? Or will he be a reforming flame, challenging the status quo to embrace a new vision for the Church? As the world grapples with an ever-evolving set of challenges, from political upheaval to social justice movements, Leo XIV's leadership style will undoubtedly leave a lasting imprint on the Church and the world. The early days of Leo XIV's papacy will be defined by his ability to balance the weight of tradition with the urgent need for reform. He enters the Vatican at a time when divisions within the Church are more pronounced than ever. The call for reforms is loud, particularly from younger generations who demand a more inclusive, compassionate, and responsive Church. Yet, Leo's history suggests that he might be hesitant to make drastic changes too quickly. His pastoral experiences, both as a missionary in Peru and as a leader in Italy, have taught him the importance of gradual transformation rather than radical shifts. But will that be enough to satisfy those calling for more immediate action? Leo XIV's background as a scholar may shape him into a cautious and reflective leader. His years as a math and physics teacher in Chicago suggest that he values logic, thoughtfulness, and understanding. This analytical approach might lead him to adopt a methodical, step-by-step approach to addressing the challenges facing the Church. His intellect and disciplined mind will likely serve him well as he navigates complex theological and political questions. However, this may also result in a papacy that is seen by some as too slow to respond or too cautious in its embrace of change. But Leo's missionary heart is what truly sets him apart. As a missionary, he has spent time on the front lines, working with the marginalized and voiceless in places like Peru. This experience has shaped his understanding of the Church's role in the world, not as a distant institution, but as a compassionate, active force for good in the lives of those who suffer. Leo has long advocated for social justice, standing up for the poor and vulnerable. His commitment to the principles of mercy and inclusivity could make him a more compassionate and empathetic leader than previous popes, with a particular focus on healing divisions within the Church and society. Despite his intellectual background, Leo XIV's emphasis on the missionary aspect of his faith suggests that he will lead with a heart full of compassion. In a time when so many are searching for hope, particularly among the world's most disenfranchised, Leo may emerge as a papal figure who emphasizes healing over condemnation, unity over division. His deep understanding of marginalized communities could inspire him to lead with empathy, listening to the struggles of those at the edges of society. At the same time, the Church is also facing rising political pressures, especially from within more conservative factions. There is a real possibility that some within the Church may view Leo XIV's compassionate approach as too lenient or too progressive. His approach to cultural issues, particularly matters like LGBTQ+ rights, abortion, and celibacy, will be keenly observed by both liberal and conservative factions. Can he maintain the balance between staying true to Catholic doctrine while also addressing the needs and expectations of an increasingly diverse and changing world? One of Leo XIV's greatest challenges may lie in finding the right balance between being a strict teacher and a compassionate guide. On the one hand, he must uphold the teachings of the Church, sometimes in the face of fierce opposition. But on the other hand, he is expected to be a shepherd who guides his flock with gentleness and understanding. Can he reconcile these two roles? Will his leadership be one of authority, or will it lean toward a more pastoral, guiding approach? His ability to strike that balance will be critical to his success as Pope. What is clear is that Pope Leo XIV has entered the papacy with a unique combination of intellectual rigor and missionary passion. His journey is just beginning, and the world is waiting to see how he will handle the tumultuous challenges of our time. The issues that he will face, whether related to Church doctrine, social justice, or global politics, are complex and deeply interconnected. His papacy may very well be defined by how he responds to these challenges. Will he be a conservative anchor, holding steadfast to the traditions of the past, or will he rise to become the reforming flame that so many hope for, lighting the way forward for a modern, compassionate Church? Ultimately, Leo XIV's papacy will be defined not just by his actions but by the heart that drives those actions. Will his missionary spirit shine through, leading him to a papacy marked by empathy and outreach? Or will his scholarly mind lead him to a more cautious, conservative approach? Time will tell, but one thing is certain: Leo XIV's papacy is already shaping up to be one that is both deeply thoughtful and profoundly compassionate. And in these uncertain times, that might be just the kind of leadership the Church, and the world, needs. As we reflect on what kind of Pope Leo XIV will be, it's clear that his papacy holds more questions than answers, at least for now. The world is eagerly waiting for him to set his mark, and while we can't fully predict the path he'll take, the unique combination of his experiences and values provides some compelling clues. Leo's upbringing in the tough neighborhoods of Chicago shaped his resilience and his ability to navigate conflict, yet his years of missionary work in Peru have instilled in him a profound understanding of social justice and compassion. These two powerful forces, American grit and a deep-rooted commitment to the marginalized, may guide him in ways that are unexpected for a pope. His time in Rome and his role within the Vatican have no doubt honed his skills in navigating the complexities of church governance, but it's his experiences outside the traditional walls of the Vatican that might shape his papacy in more profound ways. In an age of division and uncertainty, Leo XIV stands at the intersection of a fractured church, a politically charged world, and the shifting tides of societal values. The balance he strikes between tradition and progress will likely define his leadership. Will he be the unifying force that heals the wounds within the church and the world? Or will his approach be more about reinforcing the established structures, maintaining the sacred traditions that have held the church together for centuries? As we eagerly await his next moves, we are reminded that this is a pope who embodies both intellect and compassion, who, even as he holds a position of great authority, brings with him a heart shaped by service and empathy. In the end, only time will tell what kind of Pope Leo XIV will be. But one thing is clear, the journey ahead will be one of great significance, filled with challenges and opportunities to make a real impact on the global Catholic community. Hit like if you enjoyed this exploration, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more insightful deep dives into religion, leadership, and global issues. I'll see you in the next one.